Most people walk past it every single day without a second thought. A small copper-colored coin that might be sitting in a jar, lost in a couch cushion, or tucked inside an old wallet. But what if one of those ordinary pennies turned out to be a quiet survivor from 1962, carrying a hidden story from America's past and possibly even a surprising value that most people never expect? The truth is, the 1962 VDB Lincoln penny may look simple, but under the right conditions, it can become something collectors pay close attention to. And in rare cases, it can be worth far more than 1 cent. To understand why, we need to go back and look at what this coin actually is. The 1962 VDB Lincoln penny is a United States 1-cent coin featuring Abraham Lincoln on the front. It was minted in 1962 at the Denver Mint, which is why it carries the small letter D on the front side under the date. That tiny mark tells us where the coin was made, and in this case, it points to Denver, Colorado. On the back of the coin, you'll find the classic Lincoln Memorial design, which had already become a symbol of American coinage by that time. This penny is part of the long-running Lincoln Cent series that began in 1909 and continues today, making it one of the most recognizable coins in the world. Now, let's step into the history of the time when this coin was produced. The year 1962 was a period of economic growth in the United States. The country was in the early 1960s, a time of optimism, industrial expansion, and increasing everyday commerce. Pennies were essential in daily transactions, from candy stores to newspapers to vending machines. Because of that, the U.S. Mint produced these coins in massive quantities. The Denver Mint alone struck billions of 1962 pennies to keep up with demand. This high production is one of the biggest reasons why the coin is so common today. At that time, the penny was still made primarily of copper, with a small mix of tin and zinc. This gave it that warm reddish-brown color that many collectors love. Unlike modern pennies, which are mostly zinc with a thin copper coating, the 1962 VDB penny has a solid copper core throughout, making it slightly heavier and more durable in feel. That difference alone is one of the small clues collectors use when identifying older cents. The design itself carries deep meaning. On the front, Abraham Lincoln's portrait was created by Victor David Brenner and has been used for over a century. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure, and it remains one of the most iconic designs in American currency. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial design shows incredible detail, including the statue of Lincoln inside the building if you look closely under magnification. Many people are surprised to learn that tiny details like that exist on a coin so small. When it comes to features, the 1962 VDB penny is not rare in the traditional sense. In fact, it is one of the most commonly found vintage pennies in circulation today. However, what makes it interesting to collectors is not the standard version, but the variations and condition. Coins that were never circulated, meaning they were stored carefully and never used in everyday transactions, can still appear almost brand new even after decades. These are called mint state coins, and they can be significantly more valuable than worn examples. Another important factor is errors. While most 1962 VDB pennies were made correctly, a small number contain minting mistakes. These could include doubled dies, repunched mint marks, or off-center strikes. A doubled die occurs when the design is accidentally stamped twice slightly out of alignment, creating a shadowed or doubled appearance in letters or numbers. These errors are rare, but when they do appear, they can turn a common penny into something collectors actively search for. So what is this penny actually worth? In everyday pocket change condition, the 1962 VDB Lincoln penny is usually worth just 1 cent. Even rolls of these coins can still be found in circulation or old bank collections. However, condition changes everything. A well-preserved, uncirculated 1962 VDB penny can sell for anywhere from a few dollars to around $10 depending on quality and grading. If the coin has a certified mint error or is in exceptionally high grade, the value can rise higher, sometimes reaching significantly more in competitive collector markets. At auctions and in collector sales, most standard examples still stay in the low-value range, but high-grade certified coins have occasionally sold for impressive amounts. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC often evaluate these coins, and a top-grade example can attract strong interest from collectors who specialize in Lincoln cents. The key factor is not just the year, but how well the coin has survived over time. If you ever want to identify a real 1962 D penny, there are a few simple things to look for. First, check the date clearly printed as 1962 on the front. Just below the date, you should see a small D mint mark if it was made in Denver. The coin should feel like copper and not have a shiny modern zinc appearance. Weighing the coin can also help, since copper pennies from that era are slightly heavier than modern ones. Authentic coins will also show natural aging, such as a reddish-brown or darker copper tone, depending on exposure. Fake or altered coins are not extremely common for this date, but they do exist in the form of modified mint marks or altered dates. Some people try to change the mint mark or manipulate coins to appear rare, so collectors always recommend checking details carefully or using professional authentication for valuable pieces. Another common mistake is confusing machine doubling, which is a common minting effect, with true double die errors, which are much rarer and more valuable. There are also a few fun facts about this penny that make it more interesting than it first appears. For example, the 1962 Lincoln Cent was produced in the billions, meaning it was part of one of the highest production runs in U.S. history for that time. Despite that, many of them were saved in jars and collections simply because people didn't think pennies would ever become collectible. Ironically, that habit is what allows collectors today to still find well-preserved examples decades later. Another surprising detail is how consistent the Lincoln Cent design has remained. While the reverse design has changed over the years, the 1962 D penny still represents the long-standing Lincoln Memorial era, which lasted from 1959 until 2008. That makes it part of a significant chapter in American coin design history. Collectors are drawn to this coin not because it is rare in circulation, but because it represents a moment in time. It is a physical piece of early 1960s America, carried through decades of change. For many collectors, building a complete Lincoln Cent collection means owning examples like the 1962 D penny in different grades and conditions. It's not always about high value, but about completing history one coin at a time. In the end, the 1962 D Lincoln Penny is a reminder that even the most common objects can carry hidden stories. While most of these coins may still be worth just a cent, a few can hold unexpected value depending on condition or rare errors. And that is what keeps collectors searching through jars, rolls, and old collections, hoping to find something that everyone else overlooked. So the next time you see a simple copper penny from 1962, take a closer look. Because sometimes, history hides in plain sight, and what looks ordinary at first glance might just be the beginning of an unexpected discovery. In 1991, millions of pennies were released into everyday circulation in the United States, passing through hands so quickly that most people never gave them a second thought. But what if one of those small copper-colored coins sitting in your pocket change right now was actually something collectors quietly search for? Not because it is flashy, not because it looks different at first glance, but because of a tiny detail that often confuses people: the absence of a mint mark. Could that simple no mint mark make a 1991 Lincoln penny rare, valuable, or even worth hundreds of dollars? To understand the truth, we need to slow down and look closely at what this coin really is, and why it continues to spark so much curiosity more than 3 decades after it was made. The coin in question is the 1991 Lincoln Penny, also known as the 1991 Lincoln Cent. It features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design that has been used on the penny since 1909. On the reverse side, you will see the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was introduced in 1959 and continued until 2008. So at first glance, the 1991 penny looks like thousands of other modern Lincoln cents. Nothing unusual, nothing dramatic, just a small piece of American currency that most people overlook every day. But one of the most common questions collectors and curious coin holders ask is simple: why does the 1991 penny have no mint mark, and does that make it special? To answer that, we have to go back to how the United States Mint operates. Coins in the United States are produced at different mint facilities, primarily Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Each facility can place a small letter on the coin called a mint mark. D stands for Denver, S stands for San Francisco, and Philadelphia traditionally either used no mint mark or, in later years for some denominations, used a P. In 1991, the Lincoln penny struck in Philadelphia did not carry a mint mark at all. That means a 1991 penny without a mint mark is not an error and not something unusual by itself. It is actually the standard version of the coin. Millions upon millions were produced this way and released into circulation across the country. So if you are holding a 1991 penny with no mint mark, in most cases, you are simply holding a normal Philadelphia minted cent. However, the story does not end there, because this is where confusion often leads people down the wrong path. The phrase "no mint mark penny" has become popular online and in collecting communities, sometimes creating the false impression that missing mint marks automatically equal rarity. In reality, for this specific year and denomination, no mint mark is exactly what you are supposed to see. The real history behind the 1991 Lincoln penny is tied to mass production and everyday use. During the early 1990s, the United States economy relied heavily on physical currency. Pennies were produced in massive quantities to keep up with circulation demands. The United States Mint focused on efficiency, producing billions of coins across different facilities. The goal was not rarity or special editions, but simply to ensure there were enough coins for commerce. The 1991 penny is made primarily of copper-plated zinc. This composition had become standard in 1982 when the mint changed from mostly copper pennies to a zinc core with a thin copper coating. This change was made to reduce production costs as copper prices increased. So by 1991, every penny you see has that modern layered structure, mostly zinc inside with a copper-colored surface. The design, however, remained iconic and unchanged in its core identity. Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the front was originally designed by Victor David Brenner, and it has remained one of the most recognized designs in American coinage history. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial design by Frank Gasparo continues to represent unity and national heritage. So if the 1991 no mint mark penny is common, why do some people believe it is valuable? The answer lies in error coins and misunderstandings. While the standard 1991 penny is worth only 1 cent in everyday circulation, there are rare cases where mistakes occurred during production. These are the coins that can sometimes attract collectors. For example, some 1991 pennies may show doubling in the design, known as a double die error. This can happen when the coin die imprints the design more than once in slightly different positions, creating a shadowed or doubled appearance. If strong enough and verified, such coins can sometimes sell for anywhere from a few dollars to over $100 depending on condition. Another possibility is off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned during minting. These coins can show part of the design shifted toward one side, leaving blank space on the other. The more dramatic the error, the more collectible it becomes. There are also occasional struck-through errors, where foreign material like grease or debris interferes with the design during production. These can create missing or distorted details on the coin's surface. But it is important to be clear, none of these errors are guaranteed, and they are not specific to the absence of a mint mark. They are separate minting mistakes that can occur on any coin, including the 1991 Lincoln Cent. Now let's talk about value, because this is where expectations often need to be adjusted. A regular 1991 no mint mark penny in circulated condition is worth face value, meaning 1 cent. Even in uncirculated condition, most examples typically sell for only a few cents to maybe $1 or $2 in coin rolls or bulk collections. However, verified error coins are different. A 1991 Lincoln penny with a strong and clear double die or a dramatic minting mistake can sometimes sell in the range of $10, $50, or in rare cases even a few $100s at auction. The exact value depends heavily on the severity of the error, the coin's condition, and collector demand at the time of sale. Auction records over the years show that small error pennies from the 1990s occasionally attract attention, but they are not consistently high-value coins. Most collectors view them as affordable entry-level collectibles rather than rare treasures. So how can you tell if your 1991 no mint mark penny is normal or something unusual? Start by looking closely at the details on both sides of the coin. On the front, examine Lincoln's face, the word Liberty, and the date 1991. On the reverse, check the Lincoln Memorial columns and lettering. If everything looks sharp and normal, you are almost certainly looking at a standard circulation coin. If you suspect something unusual, use magnification. Look for doubling in letters or numbers, uneven spacing, or missing design elements. Also check if the coin appears off-center or has unusual texture marks. It is important not to confuse wear and tear from circulation with true mint errors, because heavily used coins often look damaged but are not valuable. Another important warning is altered coins. Some individuals try to remove mint marks from other pennies to create the illusion of rarity. For example, they may take a Denver D or San Francisco S coin and scratch or polish the area where the mint mark used to be. These altered coins are not valuable and are considered damaged rather than collectible. Under magnification, you can often see signs of tampering, such as scratches or inconsistent surface texture. Here is a surprising fact many people do not realize. The Philadelphia Mint produced billions of pennies in 1991 without mint marks, and because of that massive production, this coin remains extremely common even today. In fact, it is still one of the easiest Lincoln cents to find in circulation decades later. Despite that, collectors still enjoy studying coins like this because they represent everyday history. Each penny is a snapshot of American life in the early 1990s, passing through countless hands, wallets, cash registers, and coin jars. Collectors are especially drawn to coins like the 1991 Lincoln Cent because they offer a chance to search for hidden variety within something ordinary. Even though most examples are not valuable, the possibility of finding a rare error keeps the search exciting. And that is really the heart of this coin story. The 1991 no mint mark penny is not a hidden treasure in itself, but it is a gateway into the wider world of coin collecting, where small details can sometimes make a big difference. So the next time you come across a 1991 penny, take a closer look before dismissing it. While most will be exactly what they appear to be, every coin carries the same quiet question. Has it lived an ordinary life, or is there something unusual hiding in plain sight? In the end, the 1991 Lincoln Penny reminds us that not every valuable story comes with obvious signs. Sometimes value is not about gold or silver, but about attention, curiosity, and the willingness to look twice at something most people ignore. And that raises one final question worth thinking about. How many other ordinary coins in your pocket might be hiding a story you have not discovered yet? What if I told you that a simple 1-cent coin from 1998, something most people barely even notice in their pocket change, could sometimes be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars? It sounds impossible at first, because it looks exactly like the pennies you've seen your entire life. But hidden inside the 1998 VDB Lincoln Penny is a surprising story of minting errors, rare varieties, and collector demand that continues to grow even today. And the most interesting part is that most people who have handled this coin never realized its potential value, and many of these coins are still sitting forgotten in jars, drawers, and old piggy banks right now. The coin we are talking about is the 1998 VDB Lincoln Penny, a United States 1-cent coin struck at the Denver Mint. The D Mint mark simply means it was produced in Denver, Colorado. At first glance, it looks identical to billions of other Lincoln pennies made during the same era. It carries the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. But even though it seems ordinary, this specific year and mint combination has produced a few unusual varieties that collectors actively search for. To understand why the 1998 VDB penny matters, we need to go back to what was happening in the United States Mint during the late 1990s. At that time, the economy was strong, and the demand for coins in circulation was extremely high. The Mint was producing billions of pennies every year to keep up with everyday transactions. In 1998 alone, the Denver Mint struck several billion Lincoln cents, making it one of the highest mintage years in modern penny history. Because production was so massive and fast-paced, even small mistakes in the minting process occasionally slipped through quality control. And in the world of coin collecting, those small mistakes can become very important. The 1998 VDB Lincoln Penny is made primarily of copper-plated zinc, which had become the standard composition starting in 1982. This means the coin has a zinc core with a thin copper coating on the outside. It weighs about 2.5 grams, and it measures 19 millimeters in diameter. The front design features Abraham Lincoln, based on the original Victor David Brenner portrait that has been used since 1909. Above Lincoln's head is the word "In God We Trust," with Liberty on the left side and the date 1998 on the right, followed by the small D mint mark. On the reverse side, the Lincoln Memorial is shown in fine detail, with United States of America across the top and 1 cent at the bottom. On its own, there is nothing unusual about the standard 1998 D penny. Most of them are worth exactly 1 cent. But what makes this coin interesting is not the regular version, but the rare variations and errors that can occur during production. One of the most talked about varieties is the so-called close AM error. On normal Lincoln cents from this period, the letters A and M in the word America on the reverse are slightly separated. However, in some rare cases, coins were struck using a proof-style reverse die, where the A and M appear much closer together. This small difference can dramatically increase the value of the coin. A genuine 1998 D close AM penny is extremely rare. It is believed that only a small number escaped the mint before the error was corrected. When found in high condition, these coins can sell for several $1,000s at auction, sometimes reaching 5 figures depending on grade and demand. This is the kind of discovery that turns an ordinary penny hunt into something far more exciting. Beyond the close AM variety, the 1998 D penny can also show other collectible errors. These include double die varieties, where parts of the design appear slightly doubled due to misalignment during the die creation process. There are also examples of off-center strikes, where the design is not properly centered on the coin blank, leaving part of the coin blank and shifting the image to one side. Another interesting category is die cracks and die breaks, where the metal dies used to strike the coins begin to wear out and develop visible cracks that transfer onto the coin surface. Even though most 1998 D pennies are common, condition plays a huge role in value. Coins that have never been used in circulation and still show full original red copper luster are graded as red coins by collectors. If a 1998 D penny is found in high mint state grades like MS67 or MS68 red, it can be worth significantly more than face value. Some top-grade examples have sold for anywhere from a few $100s to over $1,000, depending on market demand and certification. Auction records and collector sales show that while most circulated examples remain at face value, special varieties tell a different story. A verified 1998 D close AM Lincoln Cent in excellent condition has reportedly sold for several $1,000s in specialized coin auctions. High-grade mint state coins, especially those certified by major grading services, consistently attract strong bidding from collectors who focus on modern-era coins. Even minor varieties with clear visual differences can bring in prices far above ordinary pennies. If you ever come across a 1998 D penny and want to check if it might be special, there are a few simple things to look for. First, examine the reverse side closely, especially the word America. If the A and M appear very close or nearly touching, you might have a close AM variety, which is worth further professional evaluation. Next, look at the overall condition. A bright, shiny, uncirculated coin with no wear has a much higher chance of being valuable. Then, inspect both sides under good lighting for doubling in letters or numbers. Even slight doubling in Liberty, the date, or Lincoln's profile can indicate a collectible error. It is also important to be careful with altered coins. Some people attempt to modify regular pennies to mimic rare varieties, but professional graders can usually detect these changes easily. Authentic error coins are created during the minting process itself, not after the fact, and they have natural signs of production characteristics that cannot be easily faked. One fun detail about the 1998 D penny is that it comes from a period when the U.S. Mint was transitioning into more advanced production systems. Even with modern technology, human oversight and mechanical ware still played a role in creating rare mistakes. This is why even modern coins, which many people assume are too new to be valuable, can still surprise collectors. Another interesting fact is that billions of these pennies are still in circulation today, meaning that valuable examples could still be hiding in everyday pocket change. Unlike ancient coins that are already locked away in collections, modern coins like the 1998 D penny still have the chance to be discovered by regular people who simply take the time to look closely. Collectors are especially drawn to this coin because it represents the idea that treasure does not always come from the distant past. Sometimes it is found in something as recent and ordinary as a penny from the late 1990s. That sense of possibility keeps collectors searching through rolls of coins, bank boxes, and old jars, hoping to find something special hidden among the common pieces. In the end, the 1998 VDB Lincoln Penny is a perfect example of how even the smallest objects can carry hidden stories and unexpected value. Most will always remain worth just 1 cent, but a few rare examples can transform into highly sought-after collectibles. And the most fascinating part is that the difference between ordinary and valuable can be something as small as the spacing of 2 letters or a tiny error during production. So the next time you see a 1998 VDB penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look, because in the world of coin collecting, even the most ordinary-looking penny can sometimes hold a surprising secret waiting to be discovered. Most people walk past this tiny coin every single day without giving it a second thought. But what if one of those ordinary pennies in your pocket held a hidden story that collectors still debate today? What if a simple 2005 Lincoln penny, the kind you might get in change at a store, suddenly turned out to be something unusual just because it has no mint mark? And more importantly, could that small detail ever turn a 1-cent coin into something worth real money? To understand this properly, we need to slow down and look at what this coin actually is. The 2005 Lincoln Penny is part of the long-running Lincoln Cent series in the United States. It features President Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design that has been used since 1909. On the back, in 2005, you will see one of 2 special designs that were released that year as part of the Westward Journey nickel and cent-era design changes inspired themes, including the Lincoln Memorial design and commemorative designs connected to American history. Even though the penny's look can vary slightly depending on the design version, the coin itself is still a standard United States cent produced for everyday use. Now here is where the confusion begins, and where a lot of internet myths start. Many people hear about a 2005 no-mint mark Lincoln penny and assume it must be rare or some kind of mistake coin. But in reality, no mint mark on a 2005 penny is completely normal. In the United States mint system, coins struck at the Philadelphia Mint often do not carry a mint mark. So if you find a 2005 penny with no mint mark, that simply means it was made in Philadelphia. It is not an error. It is not rare. It is how millions and millions of those coins were produced that year. To understand why this matters, we have to look briefly at how U.S. coins are made. The United States Mint operates several facilities, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Coins made in Denver carry a D mint mark. Coins made in San Francisco usually carry an S mint mark and are often proof coins made for collectors. But Philadelphia coins, especially circulating pennies like the 2005 Lincoln Cent, typically have no mint mark at all. That system has been in place for many decades. So when someone finds a 2005 penny without a mint mark, they are simply holding a standard circulation coin, not a rare mistake. So if it is not rare, why do people search for it so much? The answer lies in misunderstanding and hope. The idea that something as common as a penny could be secretly valuable is exciting. And the internet is full of videos and posts suggesting that no mint mark automatically means rarity. But in this case, the truth is much simpler. A 2005 no mint mark Lincoln penny is one of the most common coins in circulation today. That said, the 2005 Lincoln penny still has an interesting story worth telling. In 2005, the United States Mint was in a transitional era for design and production. The penny was still made primarily of a zinc core with a thin copper coating. This change had taken place back in 1982 due to rising copper costs. So unlike older pennies from the early 1900s, the 2005 version is mostly zinc, not solid copper. It weighs about 2.5 grams and has a diameter of 19 millimeters. These small technical details matter to collectors because they help identify genuine coins versus altered or counterfeit ones. On the front of the coin, Abraham Lincoln's portrait remains one of the most recognized images in American coinage. The design was originally created by Victor David Brenner and has remained a symbol of stability and history for over a century. On the reverse side in 2005, you will find the Lincoln Memorial design, which shows the famous monument in Washington, D.C., where a tiny seated Lincoln statue can be seen inside if you look closely enough. Even though the coin itself is common, there are a few rare possibilities that collectors watch for. These are not related to the missing mint mark, but instead to minting errors. For example, some 2005 pennies may have minor die cracks, off-center strikes, or unusual doubling in certain areas of the design. These errors happen when something goes slightly wrong during the minting process. They are not intentional and they are not common, but when they do appear, they can sometimes increase the value of a coin from 1 cent to a few dollars, or in rare cases, more depending on the severity and uniqueness of the error. However, it is important to be realistic. The vast majority of 2005 Lincoln Pennies, even those with no mint mark, are still worth exactly 1 cent. There is no widespread known variety of a 2005 no mint mark error penny that automatically carries high value. Many online claims exaggerate this point, which is why collectors always recommend careful verification before assuming a coin is rare. Still, there have been instances where unusual error pennies from modern years have sold for higher prices at auctions or through private collectors. For example, off-center strikes or dramatic minting mistakes on modern Lincoln cents can sometimes reach values from $10 to over $100, depending on how unusual the error is and how well the coin is preserved. But again, these are exceptions, not the rule. So how can you tell if your 2005 penny is real, normal, or something unusual? First, check the weight. A genuine 2005 Lincoln penny should weigh around 2.5 grams. If it is significantly heavier or lighter, it may have been altered or damaged. Second, examine the color and surface. A real penny should have a consistent copper-colored coating over a zinc core. If you see unusual coloring, peeling, or layering, it may be damaged or plated by someone after minting. Third, look closely at the details under good light or magnification. A real coin will have sharp, consistent design features. If you see doubling in letters or numbers, or if parts of the design look misaligned, that could indicate a minting error. But be careful, because wear and tear from circulation can sometimes look like an error when it is not. Another simple test is magnetism. A 2005 Lincoln penny should not behave like a strong steel coin, but because of its zinc core, it also does not act like pure copper. It is generally weakly responsive compared to older pennies. This helps distinguish it from counterfeit coins made of incorrect metals. One surprising detail about the 2005 penny is just how many were produced. Hundreds of millions were minted. That massive production number is one of the biggest reasons why the coin is not rare today. It was designed to circulate widely, and it succeeded. Most people have handled hundreds of them without ever noticing. Collectors still enjoy these coins, not because they are valuable in the traditional sense, but because they represent modern minting history. The Lincoln Cent series is the longest-running coin design in United States history, and each year tells a small part of that ongoing story. The 2005 version sits right in the middle of that timeline, a modern workhorse coin still connecting everyday commerce to over a century of American tradition. Another reason collectors stay interested is the possibility of discovering something unexpected. Even though most 2005 pennies are common, the hunt for rare errors keeps people searching. That feeling of checking a handful of change and wondering if something unusual might be hiding inside is part of what makes coin collecting so addictive for many enthusiasts. It is also worth noting that coin collecting is not always about high value. Sometimes it is about preservation, history, and curiosity. A simple 2005 Lincoln penny can remind us of how money evolves, how technology changes minting processes, and how something so small can still carry a connection to national history. In the end, the truth about the 2005 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is simple but important. It is not a rare coin. It is not a hidden treasure. It is a standard Philadelphia minted cent produced in massive numbers for everyday use. But within that ordinary coin, there is still room for discovery, especially when it comes to mint errors or unusual variations. So the next time you get a handful of change, take a closer look. That small copper-colored coin might not make you rich, but it can still tell a story worth noticing. And in the world of coin collecting, sometimes the real value is not just in money, but in what you learn along the way. In the world of modern U.S. coins, some pieces get ignored simply because they look too ordinary. But sometimes, the most overlooked coin in your pocket can carry surprising stories, hidden varieties, and small details that collectors quietly chase. One of those coins is the 2007 Lincoln Penny. At first glance, it looks like just another cent. But if you take a closer look, you might realize it represents an important moment in modern American coinage, and in some cases it can even hold more value than face value depending on what you are holding. Think about this for a moment. A coin produced in the billions, used every day for small purchases, sitting in jars, drawers, and car cup holders across America. Now imagine that one of those coins, almost identical to the rest, could be worth significantly more just because of a small detail most people never notice. That is where the story of the 2007 D Lincoln Penny begins. The 2007 D Lincoln Penny is a United States 1-cent coin struck at the Denver Mint in the year 2007. The D Mint mark under the date tells you where it was made. In this case, Denver, Colorado. It belongs to the long-running Lincoln Cent series, which has been in production since 1909. By 2007, the design was still in its modern Lincoln Memorial reverse style, showing the Lincoln Memorial building on the back of the coin, a design that was used from 1959 until 2008. The front of the coin features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. This design has become one of the most recognized images in American currency. The 2007 version still carries the classic look created by Victor David Brenner, although updated slightly over time with sharper modern minting techniques. So why was this coin made in such massive numbers? The answer is simple. The United States economy runs on small change, and the penny, despite debates about its usefulness, remains part of everyday transactions. In 2007, the U.S. Mint struck billions of Lincoln cents across different facilities to meet circulation demand. The Denver Mint alone produced a huge portion of them, making the 2007 D penny extremely common in circulation. But here is where things get interesting. While most 2007 D pennies are worth exactly 1 cent, not all of them are treated equally by collectors. Small variations in production, mint errors, and condition differences can turn an ordinary coin into something worth searching for. Let's talk about what the coin is made of. The 2007 D Lincoln Penny is composed primarily of zinc with a thin copper plating. This has been standard since 1982, when the U.S. Mint moved away from mostly copper pennies due to rising metal costs. So even though it looks like copper, inside it is mostly zinc. That change is important because it affects weight, appearance, and sometimes even the way errors show up during minting. Now, the design itself is straightforward. The front shows Lincoln's right-facing portrait with the words, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the year 2007. The mint mark D appears below the date. On the reverse, you will see the Lincoln Memorial, and if you look closely enough, you can actually see the tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside the building. That detail became one of the iconic features of the memorial reverse design. At first glance, nothing about this coin screams rarity. But collectors know that rarity is not always about mintage alone. It is about mistakes, condition, and special varieties. One of the most important factors in determining value is condition. A circulated 2007 D penny, the kind that has been used in everyday transactions, is typically worth face value. However, uncirculated examples, especially those with strong luster and no wear, can attract a small premium. Coins graded by professional services in mint state condition, such as MS-65 or higher, can sometimes sell for a few dollars, especially if they have exceptional eye appeal. But the real excitement comes from mint errors. Error coins are accidental variations that occur during the minting process. The 2007 D Lincoln Penny has been found with several types of errors that collectors actively search for. One example is the double die variety, where parts of the design appear slightly doubled due to a misalignment in the die during production. On pennies, this might show up in the lettering, the date, or Lincoln's features. While not extremely common for 2007 D specifically, any confirmed double die variety can increase interest and value significantly. Another possible error is a struck-through error, which happens when a foreign object gets between the die and the coin during striking. This can leave unusual marks or missing details on the surface. Depending on severity and visibility, these coins can sell for anywhere from a few dollars to over $100 in collector markets. Off-center strikes are also collectible. These occur when the coin blank is not properly aligned during striking, causing part of the design to be missing. A dramatic off-center 2007 D penny, especially one that still shows the date, can be particularly desirable. Then there are clipped planchet errors, where part of the coin looks like it has been cut or clipped due to a mistake in the metal blank preparation stage. These are also collected depending on size and shape of the clip. Now, let's talk about real-world value. Most 2007 Lincoln Pennies still in circulation are worth 1 cent. However, uncirculated rolls or high-grade mint state coins might sell for $1 to $5 depending on condition. Certified high-grade examples can sometimes reach higher prices, but they are still considered modern, common coins. Error coins are where values can jump. A minor error might sell for $5 to $25. More dramatic and visually striking errors can reach $50, $100, or sometimes more if collectors compete for them. However, it is important to stay realistic. The 2007 penny is not a rare coin in the traditional sense, and most examples will not make someone rich. The value lies in the exceptions, not the average coin. So how can you tell if your 2007 penny is something special? Start with simple observation. Look at the mint mark under the date. Make sure it is clearly a D and not altered or damaged. Check the lettering on both sides of the coin under good lighting. If anything looks doubled, blurry, or unusual, it might be worth a second look. Next, examine the edges and surface. Any unusual cuts, missing pieces, or misaligned strikes could indicate an error. Also, weigh the coin if possible. A normal copper-plated zinc penny should weigh around 2.5 grams. A noticeable difference in weight might suggest a wrong planchet or minting anomaly. Counterfeits are not a major issue for modern pennies like this, but altered coins do exist. Some people try to modify coins to make them look like errors. That is why collectors rely on clear, natural-looking imperfections rather than obvious damage. Genuine mint errors usually have smooth, consistent characteristics that match known minting problems. Here is a surprising fact about modern pennies like the 2007 D. Even though they are extremely common, they play an important role in numismatics, which is the study of coins. These modern coins help collectors understand minting processes, production quality, and error patterns. In a way, they are like snapshots of the U.S. Mint's daily operations in the 21st century. Another interesting detail is that billions of these coins were produced, yet only a small fraction survive in pristine condition. That means condition itself becomes a form of rarity. A perfect, untouched 2007 penny saved from early circulation can be much harder to find than people expect. Collectors love coins like this because they are accessible. You do not need expensive equipment or large budgets to start searching for them. You can literally find them in pocket change, bank rolls, or old coin jars. That sense of possibility is what keeps people interested. There is also something nostalgic about the Lincoln Cent series. Even though the design changed in 2009, coins like the 2007 D represent the final years of the Lincoln Memorial Reverse. For some collectors, that adds a subtle historical importance. It marks the end of an era that lasted nearly 50 years. Today, the 2007 Lincoln Penny continues to circulate quietly, often unnoticed. But among collectors, it still gets attention whenever a new era variety is discovered or a high-grade example appears in auction listings. It reminds us that even modern coins can have hidden stories waiting to be uncovered. As you go through your spare change, it is worth taking a second look at coins like this. Most will be ordinary, but occasionally one might show something different. A small detail, a slight mistake, a subtle variation that turns something common into something collectible. And that is the real charm of the 2007 Lincoln Penny. It is not a rare treasure sitting in a vault. It is an everyday coin that challenges you to pay attention. Because sometimes value is not about age or fame. Sometimes it is about noticing what others overlook. So the next time a penny lands in your hand, especially one marked 2007 D, take a closer look. You might just be holding a quiet piece of modern history, waiting to tell its story.